Hello. Welcome to Oakville Matters. Our city calls itself a town and feels like a village when you meet each other halfway. We work together to grow our harmony, our safety, and our prosperity for all. And here's the question we're answering on our show. What is the Oakville Strategic Plan and Action Plan for the term of this council? Today, we're joined by Swaraj Mann, our manager for corporate strategy, and Sarah Lewis, manager in the economic advisory section of Deloitte. She's our consultant in assisting with the development of this strategy. My favorite question about any vision and mission pair is, can you remember them? And Swaraj, what is our vision?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Our vision has been updated with this new term of council. It's to be a vibrant and livable community for all.
So we're no longer trying to be the most livable town. We'll settle for being vibrant and livable. Is that the new vision?
The vision has been updated to add in that language about being vibrant and a community for all. After engaging the community and the interviews and the council sessions, the decision was made to add in for all to kind of reflect the importance of ensuring that the diversity of needs and perspectives in the community is reflected. We know that Oakville has changed and will continue to change. We know that now 4 in 10 residents are immigrant. 4 in 10 residents are also visible minority, according to the last census. So the vision is that community's desired future state, and strategic planning and developing the vision and refining it and revisiting it from time to time is really important to ensure that our actions are aligning with the intended direction that we want to take the town and the community.
Well, yeah, and I mean, for a fact, I think the census says that more than 10 in every 100 are South Asian, and probably more than 10 are Chinese. And look, we've got South Asian representation and Chinese representation on our council, which I think is a mark for us. In the old days of vision and mission writing, the sort of gold standard I always thought was Disney World. The vision was to be the happiest place on earth, and the mission was we make people happy. And I always thought that what was elegant about that was everybody could remember it, and I heard it 40 years ago, and I've remembered it. So there's a memorability to it that I think is charming. Sarah, what's our new mission statement?
The new mission statement is serving the community in a responsible, inclusive way, dedicated to building environmental, social, and economic sustainability. And so the mission statement is, the focus is slightly different when it comes to municipal strategic planning. It's focused on how the vision is implemented. Really, why does the municipality exist? And so, as you can see, there are a lot of elements at play in operating a municipality in a way that is inclusive and supports livability, which Oakville is known for very broadly, and I would dare say even internationally, as well as bringing that vibrancy and reflecting cultural diversity. So we can see that for Oakville, the mission really is around responsibility, inclusivity, and sustainability.
Well, when you add up all the municipal services, there's probably more than 100. So it's a heck of a mission statement that's going to capture 100 different activities. But I will say this about the new mission statement. I think it's 15 words. Do you remember how many words were in the old mission statement? 138. There was a mission statement that was hard to remember. So we made progress. We had a slightly longer vision statement and a much shorter mission statement. And the mission statement, after all, is what we do. So, Swaraj, what would you say is the main takeaway from our new plan?
I think one of the main takeaways is that we did extensively consult with the community here. We had about, I think, 3,000 residents in total respond, about 2,400 survey responses. We had a phone survey, we had an online survey, we had open houses in each and every single ward across Oakville. And through those, we did develop several strategic priorities related to growth management and community well-being, as well as environmental sustainability and accountable government. And collectively, these have been decided to be essential to shaping our future and driving towards that vision of a vibrant and livable community for all. It'd be good to maybe get in a conversation a little bit about each of those areas, perhaps.
Yeah, let's start with growth management. What were the public telling you in your various surveys? Sarah?
Yeah. So residents are very much aware that the community is growing and that further growth is planned. And so there were many comments related to preserving the natural spaces in Oakville. This is a very important feature of the community. The tree canopy was very often mentioned, the beautiful waterways, the trails. And so ensuring that even though there may be more residents, that there may be other kinds of more people and higher density buildings in some cases, that there's still that experience of the outdoors. Well, that was certainly something that came up in terms of growth management. Also, that services keep pace with growth, population growth in a responsible way. So Oakville residents are enjoy a very commitment on the part of the municipality to service excellence. And so there's an expectation that will continue, and that requires some careful planning. I think everyone realizes that. And although those expectations are continue to be high, that finding a way to make sure that Oakville remains a highly livable community in terms of even in an environment of growth is very important to residents.
So Swaraj, in terms of delivery of services, we plant tens of thousands of trees a year because we have a long-running goal to hit 40% urban tree canopy coverage by the 200th anniversary of our town. And I think everybody is on board with that. I never hear a negative word against that. We clear snow earlier than other communities do, like less snow has to fall before we roll the trucks. This kind of day-to-day collecting the garbage, clearing the snow, mowing the boulevards, planting flowers, how big a factor in people's perception of the community are those services?
I think really what you're talking about, Mr. Mayor, is excellence in service delivery, which Oakville has always strived for. And that is one of the strategic priorities that we do have around accountable government and responsibly managing the resources that we have been entrusted with. So whether it is that service delivery level or whether it's looking into providing more digital services to increase efficiency and scalability of services, advocating for provincial action on town priorities. There's a lot, I think, there from an accountable government perspective that relates to service delivery. And that was certainly something that did come up in the consultations and in our associated action plan moving forward, especially as we do some of these reviews and we look at how to make our services and programming more responsive and reflective of the community, as we talked about the community changing there as well. So I think there's a number of considerations related to that.
And that changing demographic makeup, what influence does that have on people's expectations for services? Are there services being asked for in that research that we don't deliver yet?
I don't know if this wouldn't be an area where there's no delivery, but certainly there was a good amount of conversation about active transportation, transit, connections, mobility across the community, and also connectivity to other urban centers. I'd say that that's certainly on people's minds. Is how can Oakville be, how can the mobility within the community happen with a larger population, and then also how can we connect into other centers?
And were people aware of what's people's awareness of the service level? I'm often struck by the way people will ask for things that they don't want for themselves, but they want for someone else. And we actually already do it, but they don't know it because they're not interested themselves personally.
Mhm.
What was your sense of public awareness as you were doing your research?
Mhm. Well, it's always an interesting question. I would say that communications, one thing that was hoping to share today is a bit of a sense of how different communities, what's being talked about in different communities and how that compares to what's being talked about in Oakville. I would say that one of the solutions to the issue that you raised is really strong communications. And actually, I would say that Oakville does quite well. I'm in other strategic planning processes. We do strategic planning for municipalities across the country. We do hear very often about the need for communication. How do we communicate what's happening, what the availability is? I think that we did hear quite a bit from residents on appreciation for the communication efforts of the town, and certainly a high level of awareness broadly amongst community members. I think particularly of the folks that came out to the open houses in what was happening in the community, and an interest in that. Transit specifically, yeah, not everyone might use the transit systems. They may not have firsthand experience, and certainly that is seen. There are very many whose kids maybe are using transit and have some experience that way. But it's really that question of how to increase public awareness of the good work that's happening is really a communications challenge. I would say that Oakville set up quite well. We had quite good outreach through the communications channels in Oakville, and I would say had a very strong response to the surveys. And you can see that thousands and thousands of residents responded. And that's really a testament to the strength of Oakville's communications, as well as opportunities like this to talk with the community.
Well, we have to be grateful to your TV, the cable operator, Cogeco, for making this opportunity available. Although, not everybody has cable television, so they can't see it. And our weekly newspaper just died. So I'm worried about how we'll keep communications going. In the world of, and I worked in communications most of my life, and in the world of communications, there's this phenomenon, there's this concept that people practice their freedom to ignore you until they're annoyed with something, and then they want to know, where are you and what did you do? And as our channels diminish, it becomes a concern. I wonder if our website was useful, and if we can, in your communications effort, and if we can rely more and more on that. Swaraj, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think certainly there's always opportunity to improve how we engage with residents, the type of outreach and things that we're sharing with them. I know I've heard very positive feedback about the redesign of the Oakville website, that information is more easily accessible. And this speaks to what you're talking about, how the nature of communication is changing with television and the decline of the beaver. But there are other opportunities through social media and our website, certainly. And we've always got very positive results related to our website and our outreach through our citizen survey that we do biannually, and we'll be doing again in the coming months, and taking that feedback and assessing how we can improve our communication with the public.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Sarah?
I would add, if I can, that the library system is very important in this effort as well, in terms of informing local community members about municipal affairs. And if I may say, that I was able to use the library a number of times during different visits to the community, and they were very helpful in being able to access computers and very busy with it. So centers within the community of being able to share information. So if that's just a small addition. One of the things in terms of the shift that you're mentioning that really affects municipal communications is the need for, or the opportunity for, more targeted communication. There come challenges with that, right? Where there are specific demographics or specific individuals who are more likely to be online checking social media or interested in the town's social media channels. So reaching people is more complicated than being able to share something through a local paper. And many communities are struggling with this. Many local media has really found challenges in many areas in the country. And so the Oakville is certainly not alone in seeing that and having that concern.
Oh yeah, the day the local Oakville newspaper died, the local newspaper died in dozens of communities across Ontario.
Yes.
Swaraj, how does our town's social media rate? Do you have a way of knowing how well it's used and how much it gets through to people?
We do track those metrics and report on them as part of our budget process, as well as engaging the residents, as I mentioned, in the community, the citizen survey as well. So we do have ways of tracking that and trying to continually improve that over time, for sure.
Yeah.
So as we chase, a big change is the elevating the concept of inclusivity up into the highest level of the plan. In terms of the feedback that led to that during the public consultation, what were people expecting to see as a result of making inclusivity more important? How will we measure how we're doing?
I can start, Swaraj, if you'd like to build on my first try at that. Inclusivity is really top of mind across Canada and beyond, I'd say. There's been a real increase in awareness and sensitivity following the pandemic and some of the challenges that we're seeing internationally during that time. And so it's certainly something that we are hearing across the board as being a real consideration more than in the past. I think it was present in the past, but now we certainly see it elevated in strategic planning at from a municipal standpoint. Some of the indicators of community belonging that are intended to improve and work on inclusivity in the town include the sense of belonging that residents report in the community, engagement rates on the website. So to our previous conversation, that's there as a metric, follows on social media, and also resident satisfaction with parks, culture, and recreation facilities. So those are some of the indicators that are identified to monitor this area.
Swaraj?
Yeah, if I can build on that, I think what folks were looking for that came out from the consultations as well is, so we have inclusivity as one of our guiding principles, but it's also one of our strategic objectives, and it does relate to the delivery of services and programs. I think Oakville residents want to see rec programs that reflect the demographic profile of the town, which has changed over time, as well as those supporting events that reflect and celebrate the diversity that we do have here and engaging all groups. So that's something that I think we'll want to continue to look at, especially as we develop our multi-year plan on inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility, to ensure that there is that sort of suite or menu of recreation and cultural opportunities. As we look at our upcoming initiatives, such as our special events plan, our cultural plan, refresh, and our parks, recreation, and library master plan. We know that this idea of inclusivity came up consistently throughout the engagement, and we know it's a priority for council as well. So we see that some of the action items slotted in for this term of council do directly relate to that as well.
All right. Well, in the same vein, there was quite a focus on connection and connected communities and all. What did people mean by that? What did you take people to mean by that?
Mm-hmm. Well, in terms of connected communities, what we heard from residents was a desire to feel that there were complete communities that they could access, that they wanted to be able to walk down the street to and have a sense of services available, that there were local commercial opportunities, just that overall the planning of the town gave it that sense of livability, that sense of a small town, the village that you speak of, in opening the session, people were looking for that experience of being part of a neighborhood, and that neighborhood being a place where they could get the things that they needed and feel connected to those who live around them.
Yeah, there's been a lot of difficulty in that area over the years, for various reasons, which boil down to the province is in charge of how we grow. We have 2 or 3 areas of town where you basically can't walk. There's no place to go. You got to get in a car to go get anything. And those were areas that weren't supposed to be subdivisions that, got turned into them by converting employment land into residential land. And they weren't big enough to support the individual, economic activity that should be in a neighborhood and is in many of our neighborhoods. I wonder to what degree what you just described was coming from people who years later move into a neighborhood like that and assume the town designed it that way, when I'm not sure the town was the one who designed it. There's, as mayor, one of my big learnings over the last 17 years is people don't want to know, and they don't care that Canada does this and Ontario does that, and the region of Halton does this other thing, and the town of Oakville does this. Although I think life would be better if the region of Halton and the town of Oakville was one layer that was the Oakville layer. We could do those things ourselves. Did you get any sense of resident confusion about identity between Oakville and Halton? Are people aware that they live in a 2-in-1 municipality structure? Is that
No.
My experience is they don't really understand that.
Yeah.
Especially newcomers.
From a day-to-day perspective, Mr. Mayor, it's really, people want to be able to live their lives, to be able to work, to be able to raise their families, to have the services that they need. And so the distinctions between municipal responsibility and other areas are not something that many people are familiar with. And that's not a surprise. That's very common. I would say that what we see are wherever those decisions came from, we see the consequences of them. And another one of the areas that you've talked about, or is talked about in this area of complete communities, is economic development, as well as infrastructure and transportation matters. But the community, there was certainly a sense from an economic development perspective that the employment, being able to work in the place that you live, is something that people would like to see more of. It's certainly not everyone. That's not everyone's aspiration, but that was part of the feedback that we got about economic development and complete communities.
Well, with an unknown number of working people working from home, that becomes a very difficult thing to break out into, or to parse, as they say. Maybe they all got their wish thanks to the change since the pandemic. I wonder if the feedback from organizations was different than the feedback from individuals.
Sometimes, just because organizations have different areas of concern, and so they're a bit more specific and are used to working in a particular area. So as you say that, we're talking about economic development. We certainly heard overall from organizations in relation to service and digitalization of services, would say more than from the general public, just as an example of something that was slightly different.
Okay, well, I've always wondered, I mean, my background was business, and I created a television network. Maybe you've heard of it. It's called YTV. And in that world, we worry all the time about our brand and how people feel about our brand.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible, from all the research that you two did, that you can give a readout on what the Oakville brand, how's the Oakville brand doing these days? How do people feel about, if you live in Oakville, do you feel good about it, or do you feel like you wish you could live somewhere else? Are we near the end of the journey, or the start, or the middle? What's the story? What sense did you get?
I would say that overall, of course, there's a variety of perspectives. So generalizing is always a bit dangerous, right? Just to preface, at the same time, really living in Oakville, I just remember so many positive stories about how livable the community is, and really the folks just expressing that they were really happy in their neighborhood, that that they've either lived here a very long time and love their community, would never live anywhere else, or are relatively new to the community and really enjoying getting to know their neighbors, living in neighborhoods that they have in some cases really specifically chose Oakville as a place to live. And I would say that Oakville's draw in terms of a place to live and livability is very, very strong, and one of its distinguishing characteristics.
Yeah. Well, I know for me, my family and I chose Oakville 30 years ago. It was the friendliness of the neighbors. It was the quality of the schools. It was the apparent care and keeping of the town facilities and streets and grass and flowers and trees, and it was the sense that everybody was engaged in the community and trying to make it better. Those were the four big sales points for us. So Swaraj, what did you see anything that sticks out in that? We've got about 30 seconds, so you can do that in 20 words or less.
Yeah, for sure. I'd say a couple of comments that stuck out to me was, one, people love Oakville's location. They describe it as being very central to a lot of other places as well. And that it's also a very deliberate decision to move to Oakville, that people didn't just end up in Oakville by, happenstance, but this was something they planned and dreamt of in a way. So I think the Oakville brand is very strong.
Well, those are good closing words because we're out of time. Thank you very much for joining us today. And thank you for watching. And I hope to see you next time on Oakville Matters.